Evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. WeatherBrains episode number 1030. 1030. This is for October 13th, 2025. Ooh, the month of October, one of my very favorites. Typically, the weather is kind of quiet. But anyway, welcome. If you're looking for the actual beginning of the show, move the slider over about 10 minutes or so. But this is the pre show. Hey, don't miss it now. This is the magical, marvelous time here where we typically do three things: we share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and from time to time, we say some very outrageous things. All right. So, yeah, where we are, we've had basically no weather, no active weather for the past couple of months. And of course, that means we're getting into drought conditions. And that's my least favorite kind of stuff to deal with: heat waves and droughts. That's just no good. But we do see an active system that should bring some rain and thunderstorms in here on Sunday, which is not the best timing, in that this is race weekend at Talladega. NASCAR fans, and they don't want to hear that. It's not going to rain all day, but it looks like it will be our first active weather day in a while. And before you know it, November is going to be here, which represents the beginning of the tornado season here. So things will start to pick up a little
Hey,
bit.
hey, James, do you
Good.
remember that high risk event in South Alabama on this date in 2001?
Oh, one. Oh boy.
Isn't
I
that
sh-
insane that there was a high risk event in South Alabama on October
it must not have
13th,
been a big deal
2001?
because I can't recall what happened. It
There
was
was an
kind of a bust.
F3 in Foley, and a swarm of tornadoes. I think there were 8 tornadoes in Baldwin County. So it's probably the smallest high risk of any organized fashion. And it only came out on the 20 outlook.
Wow.
I
So
should have
this
done
was
that as my weather history today because I saw it this morning and I thought that's what I should have done the story on. Because it was pretty crazy. I couldn't believe my eyes when I went back and saw that we had a high risk in Alabama on October 13th.
yeah.
I had to go back and verify it.
Let's
I
see
think that was
here.
right before I started working on the blog. I guess whatever we called it back then. I don't even know what, I guess it was the station website in 2001 and the facts probably.
Yeah, I see the Foley EF3. Um,
And
yeah,
there was
I'd
one near Fairhope that morning. Did you keep all of the faxes that you and JB created, James? Did you like have them on a disc
oh,
somewhere?
I don't think we had discs. I think somewhere there's like a folder of paper, and I'm not good. I'm good with I'm a digital pack rat, but I'm not that good with paper. But if I had to guess,
I have a
somewhere.
few back here, but I sure if you have some, I sure would love to digitize them because they're just treasures, especially those Miss Molly stories and things he used to write.
I'll try and dig that up. Yeah,
I would say
this
ginseng's a
October.
background, but it may not be.
I did. I was given a hint where I am.
Oh
Yeah,
darn! I was hoping you were going to be live from some real
live.
beach.
I know. Not this evening.
Well, for a minute, Jen was missing an arm. I'm glad her arm showed back up there. That's good. The 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 Zoom chroma key can be really crappy. I have
Yes,
learned
it
that.
can.
Your head looks lopsided. You don't have an ear. Like one eyeball's popping out. I mean, a lot of things can go wrong there.
That's right.
Now, what's so I'm actually using the Zoom chroma key, which is not good. I can use like Wirecast and make it look really nice, but this is the quick way to do it. So if my
Yeah.
head's my head is lopsided. That's the problem. I do have a lopsided head. I have potholes up here. So if my
You
head
could, you
looks
could, you
lopsided, it is because it is lopsided.
You could go over to Studio A and really be in Studio A though.
Well, I won't have this microphone here. I'll be on a crappy mic, and
That's true.
I like good audio. Um, so I'll just stay in Studio B. B is the audio room. Um, all right. What have I not done here?
What is up,
I did get
gentlemen
your
and
audio.
ladies?
Hey,
Hello,
Joe, how are
Joe.
you?
Good, good, good.
Excited to be talking to you tonight, Joe.
Yeah, this will be kind of fun. A little different, maybe, compared to some of the deeper analysis that you guys will sometimes do. But yeah, this will be a little different.
After all these shows, it's hard to be different. We've done about everything there is to do.
I bet you have. We do this streaming show now on our Plus channel, and we've been doing it for about 6 months, once a week for an hour. So we all pick different subjects to talk about to fill the time. And I'm running out of ideas. Um, wow. Trying to think of interviews and stuff like that.
You could interview Brian Busby.
I could interview Brian Busby. We could have
Let's do it, Joe.
we could have a WDAF plus KMBC plus reunion or something.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
hi, Brian.
Excellent. Hey, what's going on?
Hey, not much. Good to see you.
Likewise.
The problem
Beginning
with
is all
Brian, this man doesn't age. The man does not age. I mean, it's like his youthful appearance has not changed in 25 years. What's the secret?
Um, you know, we're not recording yet, are we?
We're
So
we're
they're
live
behind
on
the monitors.
YouTube.
Oh,
We're
okay.
live on YouTube, but we're not on the audio podcast yet.
Have you ever read the short story by Oscar Wilde, The Portrait of Dorian Gray?
Yes.
Okay, see. So he had this portrait that would age, and he made a pact with the devil that he would not age. He wanted to stay youthful. So people accuse me of that. I don't know what it is, honestly. Maybe it's
Packed with the devil. We knew
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Um,
But no, I
no,
think what it is just clean living. Who knows? That can't be true either.
clean living. That's why the rest of us look so old, I guess. Unclean living is what
No
we look
pacts
like.
with the devil, huh, James?
Yeah, no. What you see, and welcome to our television viewers. It is the top of the hour. It is the Monday night weather party here. So let's get going. We don't want to waste any good stuff here, and we're going to get it on the recorder. So track one, track two. Here we go. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to WeatherBrains. They're kind of a big deal.
Weather Brains, episode number 1030. 1030 for the 13th of October, 2025, the world's longest running weather podcast. We turn 20 years old in January. Who'd have thunk it? Who'd have thunk it? We're still here after all these years. So we got a great show tonight, but let's see who among the regulars who is with us. Jen is at her beach retreat, her beach
That's
estate
right.
down in West Palm Beach or Fort Lauderdale or Aruba. Where is this?
So I am still on the Southwest Florida coast. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm very generalized for just privacy purposes, but I will say I've been able to get to the beach a few times, and I've gone to a couple of the beaches that were impacted by the storms last year. And there's still a few that are completely closed. Some of the roads are closed due to Milton. And so I've seen that. But for the most part, things are looking pretty good here. And so, yeah, I put my background out so you guys can see kind of where I'm at as I'm still doing this whole nomad thing. And it still feels like I'm on this extended vacation. It's really not hit me yet that I don't have a house and I'm just kind of doing my thing. So it's been good so far and getting a lot accomplished and organized for Tornado Talk. So it's been good.
Outstanding. Well, let's go to John Gordon. John is just legendary within the weather enterprise. His passion, his desire to get it right, his work ethic, the way he treats people, and he's got his audio fixed, which makes us happy. John, welcome. How are you, sir?
James, great to see you. Brian, great to see you. Glad you're here. And I've dealt with a lot of misguided souls, James Spann, who don't seem to understand that the EF5 in North Dakota is legit and that it's not a conspiracy. It is not, we should re-rate El Reno, we should outrate Joplin, all these tornadoes. Everyone settle down. It's called scientific research and service.
You know, if Tim Marshall's involved in it, and I think Ledoux was on it, these guys are the best, John. They're the best. And
we're the best.
If you think you can, if you could do a better job, let's see you go out and do it.
We've got some of the best TV Mets on the show right now, including my idol, Mr. Spann. Tim Marshall is the best surveyor there is. Who's better? And there's people attacking. It's a conspiracy. Get a life, folks.
Show title, Get a Life, folks. That's the first show title possibility for the week. So, Rick Smith, have you had any feedback since our last show Monday night about the North Dakota tornado?
No, not really. It's still a hot topic of discussion in some circles, but no, I'm trying to move on.
Okay. Is it raining in Oklahoma tonight? Did I see echoes on radar?
A little bit. We've had a little bit of rain. I mean, it's not nearly enough, but I think parts of northern Oklahoma got some more decent rainfall. We probably had, I don't know, less than 1/10 of an inch here, but it was nice and cloudy and 75 degrees. So I think our third or fourth false fall was today for a few hours, and then we're back into summer tomorrow, I think. So enjoyed it while it lasted, though.
So let's check on your neighbor, Dr. Kim Cloko McLean. Dr. McLean, did it rain at your house today?
It did, and it's been sort of that light sprinkling all day, enough that it's tough to have the kids play outside, but there have been enough windows where we were able to get them out, and like Rick said, we just really enjoyed having cooler air. The clouds were a nice reprieve. I mean, you get what you can take, you take what you can get when it's been so long without any hint of a break in just 90 degrees and sunny, 90 degrees and sunny, 90 degrees and sunny. We're just over it. We're over it.
Well, does anybody have any comment on the Texas-Oklahoma football game from
Nope.
the land of the Sooners?
Oh, it was so funny. I'm sorry. I always get myself some popcorn before that game, because no matter how good either team is and how bad the other team is, you never know how that game is going to go. It is always 100% a crapshoot. It's comical, and it was comical. It was comical. My husband was a little less amused than I was. I admit, as we're a lot of Sooners fans, but I grew up a Purdue fan, as I've said many, many times on this show, and you just kind of develop a bit of a thick skin, and you tether yourself more to reality and think about just how fun this all is, and try not to take it too seriously when you're up against a comedy. And it was
spoken by a person who doesn't have a dog in the hunt.
So let's go up Interstate 44 to get our football analysis from Dr. Adelot here on the Tulsa or the Oklahoma-Texas game. James, what's your take on this?
Kim's right. I totally agree with Kim and Rick too. It's 18, 19-year-olds playing football. But OU's best blocking running back can't run. Their best running back can't block. Their best pass catching tight end can't block, and their best blocking tight end can't catch. Other than that, I think they've got a pretty good team.
We're going to put that in a spreadsheet.
He shouldn't have played Mateer. I think he blew his calling card with the playoff committee down the road. James A, is that the thought process out there too, or just
Uh,
around here?
I think in the judgment of the coaches, a not full speed Mateer was a better option to win the game than a full speed backup QB2. So, you know,
Gotcha. Well, how many more years are
Well,
they going
well,
to play this in the Cotton Bowl? Because I got to get there before they stop doing this. How many more years is?
forever.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. Okay. All right.
They
Good.
just signed a new contract with it. And with the SEC, it'll never be 11 o'clock. And of course, in Fair Park, it'll never be after dark either. So even Big Tech's watching over it can't keep it too great.
Can you imagine an
So-
OU Texas game after dark? Oh my God.
Oh, howdy, folks.
let's go down. Let's go down to hang on. Let's go down to Texas and get the other side of the coin here from Troy Kimmel. Troy, what are your thoughts on the game?
You're muted, Troy.
Perfect.
Unmute thyself.
Troy.
Perfect.
It's probably for the
Last week I
best.
sat here and trashed Texas, and they turned around and did some good. And then later on in the evening, A&M came damn close to losing that ball game that the Aggies were playing. So at this point, I'll stick to weather forecasting and see how that works out. Of course, it's been clear for 475 days, so that one's even easy. 91 today in Austin, still. So we're not past the 90s yet, past the 90s yet, past the 90s yet, past the 90s yet, Kim. Well, we're working on it. If you don't mind kicking that, you and Rick's kick that stuff a little further south.
We actually had a 39 in DeKalb County, Alabama,
Yeah,
early Sunday morning.
Fahrenheit?
So, yeah, it's Fahrenheit. But yes. Well, Bill Murray, bring in our guest. This is going to be a fun show. Let's bring him in. We got to get this show on the road here.
I don't get to bring in our guests tonight, James, because our guests tonight belong to James A. lot. But I'm going to ask you, James, have you ever been to the world's first drive-through museum in Seal, Alabama? I'm sure you have. You've been everywhere in Alabama, but have you been through this museum? Yeah, this looks pretty
No.
cool. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to assign that to you.
Russell County?
Yeah,
Russell County. Okay.
on Alabama 26 down there. So,
Okay.
Butch Anthony's
it's on
Museum
my-
of
it's on
Wonder.
my
So
hit
that's your
list.
homework assignment when you're hitting South Alabama. But anyway, so I'll turn it over to James A. and let him introduce our guests tonight.
We're going to take a visit up to Kansas City, where two longtime chiefs, both are not native to Kansas City, both went to St. Louis for meteorology and all kinds of fun stuff, and both have had incredibly long, storied careers in Kansas City too, and are what is refreshingly delightful, great friends off camera too.
Yeah.
And you don't often get to see that in TV markets because for some reason people get weirdly competitive about that stuff. And I don't get it. And Brian and Joe, you've done really well. Let's start with Brian. You're a Cleveland kid. Who'd you grow up watching? And I think I know the answer to this. How did you get to Kansas City?
Well, the guy I grew up watching was the only meteorologist I knew in the market. Actually, there were two in Kansas or in Cleveland, Ohio, which is where I'm from. One was Wally Conan, the weatherman, and he was on WKYC, which is the NBC station. But the guy that mom and dad and the family watched was the guy by the name of Dick Goddard. And Dick was on WJW, Channel 8, which was the CBS station. And I think he was in the Guinness Book of Records at one time as the longest tenured weathercaster or meteorologist on TV from 1961 to 2016. Yeah, can you imagine the same station that long? And so he was the guy I watched. And as a kid, about 8 years old, I was afraid of thunderstorms, so I wrote him a letter. It's one of the few tornado watches I remember for Northeast Ohio. We don't get them that often. And so it was July 4th. And I remember writing him because if you look at little kids when they watch fireworks displays, they're covering their ears because they don't like that loud noise. And so I didn't like thunder. So I wrote him a letter. He invited me down to the TV station. That's where I got the I guess the knack for wanting to know more about weather. And so then I said, well, meteorology, that's what all meteorologists do. I didn't know about the Weather Service, didn't know about other branches. I just knew about the guy I saw on TV. So I thought, oh, broadcasting, I'll go into that. And I was accepted at Michigan. I was accepted at Ohio State. But mom and dad said, oh, we can drive up and see you every weekend. So St. Louis University looks really good right about now. I'll see you at Christmas. I'll see you at Easter. I'll bring laundry. That was it. And not only that, but St. Louis U had a very good meteorology department. One of the first, I think, when St. Louis U first went into existence, they had some sort of semblance of a earth science department because of Lewis and Clark and the expansion of the Louisiana Purchase. So it was like the first settlement west of the Mississippi. So that's how I ended up in St. Louis, to get far enough away from the folks and also to have a small department of meteorology to learn from.
All right, Joe, I'm going to ask you the same thing. How did you get from New York to Kansas City?
So I was ready to leave New York. Nothing against New York, but it was time for me to kind of fly away from home just a little bit. And we visited St. Louis University, and I had the opportunity of meeting Dr. Moore, James Moore, and he had just started there after moving from the Bronx in New York, and I grew up just north of New York City. So we had a sort of weird instant connection, and he was making his puns as we were talking about the weather program and stuff like that, as he always used to do. Shocking. And so I told my parents right from the get-go, I was like, I want to come out here. And I could have gone to Cornell. I looked at Penn State, and Penn State was too big, I thought. SLU, as Brian could attest to, was a small-ish program. There were about, I would probably say, maybe if memory serves, 15 or 20 kids in weather. Then they had the grad school side of things, and Dan McCarthy and some really John I, some great names within the Weather Service. They were grad school when I was there. So that was probably, I'm guessing, around 5 or 10. And then we had the kids from ROTC, ROTC from Scott Air Force Base before everybody started to merge departments. And those guys added probably about 10 or so. So the department overall was pretty small, probably, if you add it all up, under about 40-ish. And I just felt better about that than I felt like if I would have gone to Penn State, I would have been a number because their department was so big. So got out to SLU. It was a little culture shock being first time away from New York, the New York area. But once I found my Italian pizza and my Italian bakeries, I was in much better shape. And then Brian and I eventually met. I don't think we met first year, right, Brian?
Yeah, for KBIL radio, right?
Yes.
KBIL, which stood
KBIL with the coat hanger for a antenna on top of Lewis Hall.
Which would only go for about maybe 5 blocks around the campus. But hey, we were on radio. KBIL stood for Billikens because that's our mascot. We're the Billikens. So that's why we're called KBIL. And one thing I was just going to say is the fact that Joe and I were probably the only two who are really interested in broadcasting. And that's exactly what we want to do, more so than the research, more so than isentropic meteorology with Dr. Moore and some of the other stuff. We definitely said we want to do broadcasting. And so I think that's the other reason we gravitated to one another.
Hey, what's a billiken, by the way?
It was coming.
You want to answer it, Joe? You want me to?
I compare it. Remember I think it's still sort of their logo, the Michelin Man. So that's what it kind of looks like. In a weird way, it kind of looks like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It goes back to a football coach back in the 1930s by the name of Frank Bender, if memory serves. And somehow his team got labeled as the Bender Billikens. And the Billiken is basically a ancient good luck charm statue. I guess would be the best way of describing it. And to this day, on campus, there's a statue of the Billiken, and everybody's supposed to, if you walk by the statue, you're supposed to rub its belly for good luck. And so one thing led to another. The Billiken kind of caught on during the 1930s. As a matter of fact, the design of the Billiken came out of Kansas City way back when. A lady designed it. It was like some sort of bank. There was some sort of weird connection to a bank. And one thing led to another, and now they're the Billikens. And it's a unique nickname. Nobody else in the country has it, for better or for worse. And so, yeah, so they're the Billikens.
I thought it was like a greyhound or something. Wow, I was.
No.
Oh, that's a Saluki. Sorry, I was close.
Yes, Southern Illinois. Southern Illinois University, Salukis.
Sorry, my bad, my bad. Tell me about Kansas City. What have you both seen happen in media in Kansas City in your time, and how are you all such good friends? It's really cool.
So I think probably from a friendship side of things, we became good friends during college right off the bat, again, because of the broadcasting connection, but it was such a small department. It wasn't that hard to create friends who have the same common interest. So, Brian would hang out at the dorms where I lived, and sometimes a bunch of us would go over to Brian's apartment because he at the time was working at KTVI in St. Louis doing their weekend weather. And, for a pimply kid from New York, he's like, dude's already on TV and I'm sitting here sweating a D in whatever class I'm taking. I thought that was pretty impressive. And so we just kind of developed the friendship from there and the give and take of giving each other trouble. And Brian was so good, so quick in St. Louis that he was able to kind of help me along a little bit more than I was helping him in a sense.
That's
and we
not
just talk
true.
about TV weather people.
Wait a second. That's not true, buddy, because you helped me in physics. Physics lab.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awful. That was awful.
Yeah. So Joe and I mean, we kind of helped each other. As far as the broadcasting is concerned, we would have this map in the living room that I would pin up there, and we'd have magic markers, Sharpies, and I would have him do a weathercast while I sat on the couch and critiqued him as this 17-year-old freshman in college on television already. And there was a general manager of a television station. What are the call letters, Joe?
WCEE.
That's
TV.
right. Mount Vernon.
Little station in the middle of a cornfield in Kell, Illinois, just north of Mount Vernon.
And so the guy called me up and said, well, do you know anybody who's looking for a job? And I said, well, yeah, there's this guy who I know has had previous experience in my living room, but still previous experience that you should take a chance on. And Joe was the first chief meteorologist for WCEE. And so it was just natural for me to help him as we just kind of gravitated once again toward one another. So it's been kind of fun.
Then the same day I interviewed there, I also handed in my grad school application because there's something. Because I wasn't expecting to get into television. Television jobs back then were it's different now to some extent, but back then, man, that was a tough business to break into. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't going to work, even if it was 75 miles away from St. Louis, we had no information there. I was driving back and forth every day so I could look at the maps in the SLU weather office. And then I would drive to Southern Illinois and do weather for the 9 o'clock show and drive back at night.
How long have you both been in Kansas City?
November of this year will be my 40th, that I'll start my 40th year.
Joe?
I started January 1st of 95. I drove with Brian out here to start the moving process.
This is true.
for him.
Yeah. So we had the apartment together. I had to do the weekends in St. Louis. The only way the news director was going to let me out to take this new job was for me to fill in one last weekend. So we did the show. Joe and I just loaded up the truck and moved to Beverly Hills, that is, swimming pool with movie stars. And we moved out, and I didn't know the city that well, but I remember when I first took the interview that the airport is away from downtown. And I don't know if you remember this, Joe. I got on I-35 going toward Johnson County as opposed to I-29 going up toward the airport.
Yeah.
And so about halfway there, I'm going, this does not look familiar at all. You made your flight though, didn't you?
Yep, made the flight.
Okay. Yeah.
Kansas City
So,
can be very confusing when you first move here because we are all roads. It's a little weird. A
yep.
little weird. But it's a great
But-
town. That's the thing. When
Yeah.
I first got here, I thought I want to end up in St. Louis.
Mhm.
I don't want to stay here more than 5 years. I want to go back to St. Louis. I had still some friends there, and I thought that was the end all be all because I have distinct memories of watching St. Louis television from 1980 to 1985, 86, 87 or so. And I just thought they were the end all be all. Yeah, Dave Murray, even further back, Mike Smith, Bob Richards, KSDK was just doing all sorts of amazing things. And I just thought they were the gold standard, the way they were doing everything. And now 30 something years later, here we are.
Yeah.
So what's been the way this thing has changed, and it's changed dramatically even in the last few years, the rate of change in what we do, it has really accelerated. What's the thing, if you look back to when you started in Kansas City, both of you, that has happened that there's no way you could have expected, both good and bad? There's got to be two things, both good and bad there, right?
Oh, sure. I think what it is, and everybody will attest to this, is that we were expected to do more with either the same resources or less resources, but they still want you to keep the weight down and go to this school and talk to this nursing home and be accurate. And also, we have more newscasts and all this thing called social media, which is what we're talking over right now. And so there are a lot more mouths to feed than we had long before. I remember when I first got here, there was only a 5 o'clock, a 6 o'clock, and a 10 o'clock newscast. That was it. And there weren't that many times to record promotion or spots. Usually you had a radio station that you were partnered with. You maybe had to do newspaper. But as far as doing things online, and not just Facebook, but now what, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat for some, TikTok, but Joe and I will not dance. Um,
Oh.
So I think it's been a quicker pace, that's for sure, and more inventory that has to be fed and other tentacles. I think that's probably the best analogy. It's like an octopus. They're now all of a sudden, I thought you only had 8 legs. No, about 15. They're still wanting your attention and vying for your attention. So it gets a little more confusing where the spirit is willing, the flesh is weak, but they're only 24 hours in a day. Jojo?
I think the biggest thing about it, how things have changed, is the feeding of the beast. We're a Fox station. We used to be NBC about 3 months before I got here. And then when we converted from NBC over to Fox, that's when we did a massive hiring spree in the late summer of 94. And, if everybody remembers back in the day, Fox had very little programming of any consequence. They had gotten football, and that was really about it. So we filled all our time with news. To a large extent, we still do that. And as a result, I think for us at least, that's the hugest thing, that we have to keep feeding the beast, and the beast is always hungry. And now you throw in the plus channels and the streaming thing. Like tonight, we have baseball, and they decided on Friday, well, we've got producers hanging around. Let's not have a free day off. So here we go. We're going to do a 4 o'clock show on the streamer. We're going to do a 5 o'clock show on the streamer. We're going to do a 6 o'clock show on the streamer. And this is all stuff that, for us at least, even a year ago, we would never do. So it's just adding on, I guess you could say, in some sense. We're replacing the over-the-air, the OTA stuff with streaming stuff in some cases. And that's apparently, some say, the next frontier, streaming. I've got my doubts, but streaming is the next frontier in terms of local stations. James, props to you, man. I'm dying to see how this works out for you. And for all of you, actually.
Yeah, we live in interesting times, and goodness, you guys have hit the nail on the head here. The one thing about it, everybody on this show has 24 hours in a day. That's it. You cannot purchase another microsecond. You can't. The richest woman, the richest man, and we all have 24 hours in a day, and there's only so much we can do in 24 hours. And years ago, I narrowed my sleep window down to 3 hours. I sleep 3 hours a night to accomplish what I need to accomplish in a day, which is fine. I'm some freak of nature. It doesn't bother me. I'm energized. I feel fine. I cannot wait to wake up at 4 a.m. and do what I do for a living. I can't. I'm not complaining. But at some point, I think there's a breaking point for all of us. And we just have to watch our mental health situation carefully, because it can wear on you. During the show, for example, I'll probably have at least 100 messages, 100 that have come in that demand an answer on the social side. And after the show, I'll answer all the messages. And, it can be a grind. And, we just have to, I think, prioritize things. And I'm very blessed that I have been freed by my company, Sinclair, a big boy company. They have worked with me to allow us to do this new digital statewide network, which I believe is the future, and I believe it's the right thing to do. I think we're at the right place at the right time. But for all of us, we have to be careful to watch that old burnout situation, because it comes fast and furious. You guys know what I mean.
Preach.
There are times where we all need to take a walk in the park. We all need to go fishing. We all need to like I play tennis. That's my thing. I play tennis on Sunday evenings, and that's my little happy place. And we have to have that time off the grid to kind of recharge and gather our thoughts. But it's increasingly more challenging. Fellas, when I started, this is how old I am. All I had to worry about was a 6 and a 10 o'clock. There was no 5 o'clock, Brian. Yeah. No 5 o'clock when I started doing it. What did I do with all of my time? What did I do? I was on TV at 6 o'clock and 10 o'clock doing a 2 or 3 minute weather segment. I look back on it and goodness, I just cannot even imagine that. And then we did live at 5. And so the 5 o'clock news came on. But it is what it is. And again, I'm energized. I'm pumped. I'm trying to help build a future for the next generation.
James, I think I know what you did with only a 6 and 10. You perfected your backstroke.
That's it. You got it, Brian. Exactly. Perfected the backstroke.
Let me ask you guys this. What change are you just amazed at? Because not only has the business changed, but the science of meteorology has changed dramatically too. What tops your list?
Hey, to me, probably the model data, everything that you look at on a day-to-day basis as a step one. When you think about the graphics that are available to us now compared to 30, 35 years ago, when some were still, in some cases, making maps, drawing on a map, maybe 40 years ago. To me, those are the two big things. And then, if you look at it even deeper, the partnerships that you establish with the Weather Service to some extent, and emergency management, and various cities and governments and stuff like that, who kind of make phone calls and depend on your expertise in certain high leverage situations. think a lot of that is kind of all evolved over the last about 30 or 40 years. But those top two, obviously, the model data and the graphics. I mean, you could spend a day just working on graphics if you wanted to. Don't have time to do it, but you could.
I think that the other thing that's changed, aside from what you mentioned, Joe, is the fact that the perception. I mean, people always talk about it's the only job you can be wrong half the time and still keep it, blah, blah, blah. But we still don't get enough credit for when we do nail it. And we do nail it more than people give us credit for, mainly because the expectations have gotten so much more finite. When I first got into business, if we said a 20% chance of rain and it did rain, people gave us credit. Okay, fine. If I say a 20% chance of rain and it didn't rain, people still say, okay, well, there's only a 20% chance. Now people want to know, is it going to rain over my kid's soccer match? If it does rain over my kid's soccer match, when's it going to start? If it is going to rain and it's going to start the time you said, when's it going to stop? Because now they want to know more. And when I do speak to big groups, I say something like this. Since we talked about the Chiefs, which came off a victory yesterday, who's going to win between the Lions and the Chiefs? Okay, if you think the Chiefs, what do you think the score is going to be at the end of the game? And are you going to be right on the money with that score? Okay, let's go a little farther. How many total yards is he going to pass? How many total yards is he going to rush? The more questions that people ask and the more you zoom down, the more likely something is going to be inaccurate. But people don't see that as the big picture, that we are probably more accurate than people give us credit for when talking about a generalization. In other words, I can't imagine, and Joe is a competitor of mine, and our forecasts are pretty similar. Nobody of the four stations is going to go for a blizzard tomorrow. Everybody's pretty close to maybe 1 degree or another. And it's all about perception in that regard. And I think one thing that's changed is the fact that people are second guessing the science behind what we're talking about. So not only are we looking at 15 different models, but people don't believe those 15 different models. And we all know what we can see on our individual time, our feeds that are in social media, and how people are still taking us to the shed, even for the smallest things, and not believing the things that they should. Okay, I'm off my soapbox. Sorry.
And this is the big difference between Brian and me. In that story alone, Brian is such a great communicator, and he always has been. And I'm like the analysis guy. I'm like diving into numbers and thinking about different things. And Brian's telling you about stories about football games and players coming out and players going in and whatever all that was. But it's a story that I love it because it's great. And that's, we talk about friendship. That's where Brian is so dang good, is he's just this great communicator. And to me, way better than me. I'm in my own little world over here. But he just,
Joe, what's your
great
Venmo?
Communicator.
What's your Venmo? Because that's great stuff. Thank you so much. I can send it to you now. But let me before anybody else jumps in, Joe has done something that it really upsets me across town, because I do watch him. He came up with this thing, and you know which one I'm going to talk about, Joe, because we talk about it over lunch. It is called What Your Weather App Can't Tell You. And he'll find some minutia little just nugget of information, like how many times has Kansas City been a blah, 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 blah. I'm like, that is brilliant. And I am always wondering, I guess I just got my answer that I'm a better communicator. Thank you so much for that. But Joe, you still have something like a Plinko moment of watching The Price is Right. When you put that graphic up there, I'm throwing stuff at the screen. Because it's so good.
So,
it is so good.
By the way, tonight's What Your Weather App is all the rain that Phoenix has had in the last 2.5 months compared to us. We're in a drought. Yeah. And they've had like 6 inches of rain and still raining. So we are very fortunate here that we are not consulted in terms of consultants. I've had, since I've been here, probably 3 meetings maybe in 30 something years with a consultant. Not in the last 8 years, I think, 7 years. So we don't do consultants, but that idea came from a consultant in a weird way. They started out the meeting about, they held up the phone. This is your competition. You have to do something better than this because we could all get the weather on this. And they're right. We can't. And that's the genesis of the what your weather app can tell you. You're not going to get it from this. So.
Have you ever been thrown out of a meeting with consultants?
Oh, I'm prickly sometimes.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
What'd you do, Brian?
You know how they tell everything to be hyper local, and they say, don't show a national map. We only want to see the viewing area, and do your whole weathercast like that. And so I raised my hand, and the consultant called on me. He said, well, can I show a cold front moving down if it's going to cool down later on this week? He said, no, 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 no. Just show the 30 counties that are in and around Kansas City. Oh, yes, Brian. Okay, but if this front's going to really do something, can I show the big picture? And that no, just stay on the viewing area. Yes, Brian. Okay. Let's just say there's a 5 alarm fire at a hotel that's a national or a historical building. And there's some great video, but the editor only chooses to show a close-up of the flames coming out of one window. Does that show the scope? No, it doesn't. Well, why can't a weather person show the big picture, which is the cold front moving in, and then zoom into the close-up of how it's going to affect? And the news director said, you don't need to come back to this afternoon's meeting.
I should have done that faster.
But and that's the other thing that and Joe will say this too, is that, and all of us will probably say this, is that the people who are making the decisions about the way we should present weather don't understand what we hear, not just in the focus group, but when we hear going to the grocery store, the laundromat, or the gas station, or the quick trip. And so these are little things that are deposited seeds in the back of our mind that make us think of, well, why don't we show the cold front moving down? Why don't we show what's happening in Phoenix compared to Kansas City to give it some perspective? And I think that they just look at those 30 people eating donuts and having coffee, talking back and forth, as opposed to our customers that we see on a general basis, not just who they choose in a hotel room while meeting.
Usually for me, I get in trouble as soon as I say something along the lines of, well, can you tell me a market where this works?
Oh,
And I get a lot of non-answers.
Yeah.
So we're very fortunate. They just let me be me for better or for worse. And that's why, at least for me, and to some extent, probably for Brian too, we've hung around so long. If they're not going to mess with us and you're happy what you're doing, the grass isn't always greener in the bigger places.
Nope.
So Kim will appreciate this because I derailed a consultant meeting, and of course they had a Likert scale, the 0 if you believe this, up to 5 if it's always true, whatever. And so they had a Likert question that asked 2 questions in it. So there was one question that asked 2 things. And I said, I have a research methods question for you. How can you ask 2 things in one question? And you can't. But hey, mission accomplished. I derailed an entire meeting. I was very proud of myself. Let me ask you two both. What weather do you hate to deal with in Kansas City? Just hate to forecast it, hate to communicate it, hate to deal with it.
Severe weather. Don't like it. Doesn't do anything for me. Never has. It just, I don't think I'm the best at it. I'm always uncomfortably comfortable, or comfortable uncomfortably, something like that. I just never feel great about my coverage after the fact. I messed this up, could have done better here. Whereas for me, my favorite one is snowstorms, snowstorm forecasting. I love it.
You
Drives
are
me
so
crazy.
wrong to have that attitude.
I could never do
Joe.
Oklahoma City. I could never do Tulsa. I could never do Alabama. Never could do Mississippi. Way too much severe weather. Not in my cards.
All right, Brian.
Joe, you sad, strange little man. No, Joe hit it on the head, and that we are so different. I mean, I think I go into a zone when I'm on severe weather coverage, wall to wall. But for me, at the green screen, I'm a traffic cop. That I'm going to the chasers out in the field. I'm going to the number two, and by the way, he's one of them is Pete Grigsby, who's doing the 9 and 10 tonight. Pete is our guy, one of 6 that we have here. And so I think I have it pretty easy because I'm just analyzing radar while I'm getting all this information through my earpiece and other things. So severe weather for me, I go in the zone and I try to do a good job. And I think for the most part, we do a pretty good job. The ones, and just to show that Joe and I are opposites, the thing I hate coming from Cleveland, Ohio, I hate predicting winter weather. The I-70 corridor, whether it's freezing rain or sleet, and depending on how much is going to eat into that overall total of how much moisture is going to be coming out of the storm itself, and how quickly it's going to melt, and how quickly the asphalt is going to cool down to support that. Oh man, no thanks. No thanks.
What's the worst you've ever felt doing weather? I mean, like maybe you just learned the magnitude of a weather event, or you feel like you made a horrendous mistake somehow.
North Kansas City tornado in '02, because when we had that on the chopper, that was my first time being on the air with something that mammoth happening in our area. Previously to that, I used to have to look at Oklahoma City when they used to put out the VHS tapes after their big tornado outbreaks. I would look at Oklahoma City's VHS tapes to try to see what they were doing, because believe it or not, it's actually rare for us to get something like that in Kansas City proper. So when the '02 storm hit through out by the Speedway when it was being built, Wyandotte County, KCK, north side of Kansas City towards Gladstone, you just knew it was going to be bad. It was going to be bad. And at the time, it was just me and our guy in the chopper when we had the chopper back then. And yeah, my stomach just, once they showed that thing, no, thank you.
May 4th, 2003, 543. Yeah, that particular one. And very rare for Kansas City to be put under high risk by SPC for that particular event. But as Joe says, we don't get as many tornado outbreaks here in Kansas City. For me, it'd probably be July 9th and 10th, 1993, which was, we're much more of a flash flood town than we are a tornado town. And this is before news stations would be on 24 hours. So we actually signed off and had to sign back on. And we had just, it had to be just training that went on and on and on. And we received quite a bit of rain. For those who are familiar with Kansas City, Southwest Boulevard has lots of Mexican restaurants, and it's in a valley. So it goes downhill. So gravity is not your best friend. And there was so much runoff that people had to be rescued off the second story and rooftops of these restaurants that were underneath water. So I'm here in the station by myself. There's one guy in master control. There are no producers because we didn't have an early newscast back then. So it's the engineer in master control. It's me and 2 photographers who are out covering this event of flooding. And so one of them comes back in with footage from Southwest Boulevard that I was talking about. And because there was no log, the master control operator just went to a dusty shelf and just got something to put on. But I'd have to go on every 9 minutes as there was a break in the show, which would be where the commercials would be, to try to let people know what's happening. And so we get back. Jeff Roberts was the photographer. He has the video. It's raw. Mercifully, no bad language. But you see these people being rescued off of rooftops, and I'm trying to do my best Peter Jennings imitation by, talking to him. My microphone's on my tie. Now I'm going back and forth between him, and he's giving me his eyewitness account of what happened. And so I look at the camera and say something, we'll have more information after this. We go back to the program that Jim put on the air. I start laughing, off air, mind you, but in my earpiece, he says, "Why are you laughing, Brian?" And I said, "Jim, do you see what program you have put up there for this flood coverage?" He said, "No, I didn't. I just grabbed something." It was the Undersea Adventures of Jacques Cousteau.
Oh, wow.
So there's this video of people being rescued in flooding, and then for a split second, I'm going, "Wait a minute, is that no? Okay, that's Jacques Cousteau." But he was like, "Okay, that was unfortunate to say the least."
We're getting a lot of love on I'm trying to keep up with the YouTube chat comments, and y'all both are getting a whole lot of love. Your Kansas City people have taken over. So the real question probably everybody in the country wants to know, Kansas City barbecue the best around?
Me? I'd say yeah. You got my favorites.
Oh yeah.
Which
Likewise.
ones are your favorites? Can you say? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh hell,
sure.
I don't care. Q39 is top 2 or 3. Jack Stack, pretty darn good. Kansas City Joe's, formerly Oklahoma Joe's, gas station location where people are always lined up. Those are probably my top 3 traditional ones. I'm not as much of a Gates person. That's where they go, "Hi, may I help you?" When you walk in. So yeah, but it's really tough to get bad barbecue around here.
But it's better than Alabama barbecue, right?
Oh boy.
Oh, bar none.
I'm waiting for Jim's barbecue. I want to hear about Jim's.
Yeah, no, these guys apparently have never been to Jim's Pit Barbecue. I mean, we got to get them out more often. They're too confined to their culinary knowledge.
And Span, have you ever been to Gates or Bryant's here in Kansas City?
No, I don't get out much either. I'm
So
doing the weather all the
Gates-
time, like you guys. I mean, we can't get out much. We need to have a month to go explore barbecue joints in other states.
There you go. Gates
Need to go to Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's true. Make James happy. Gates is my first dive into Kansas City barbecue when I first moved here. Bryant's is one that is also on the top of my list. There's one, Joe, that I don't know if you've been to. Elsie's, which is pretty close to the TV station here, which is pretty good. But one that I've discovered that I just fell in love with. Have you been in KCK to Slaps?
Oh, no, I've heard of Slaps though. Very much so.
Slaps is good.
I've heard
We need to go. Next time we do lunch, we got to go to Slaps.
Slaps barbecue.
Yep.
So, to kind of circle around to the theme of the show, one of the things that I'm always curious about is how in other markets, other Mets from different stations have this not great relationship with their colleagues. And I've never been in a market where that's been the case. And I just don't get it. We all have some really strong common things. We all have some of the same complaints and concerns about whatever TV station you work at. It's common throughout everywhere. Everywhere everybody's got their own horror stories. And I struggle sometimes with trying to figure out why people, I'm not expecting kumbaya, but why people or other Mets aren't as friendly with each other as it can be. I don't get it.
And horrible with the other members of the weather enterprise, horrible with emergency
Yes.
managers or with the National Weather
Yes.
Service. I don't get it either.
Well, let's call some names out. Who's like that?
Well, no, here in Austin, everyone knows each other. Joe and Brian, I mean, everybody knows each other down here pretty much, and we all kind of hang out and good friends, really good relationship with the Weather Service. But you go 75 miles down the road in San Antonio, not quite as much as I understand it, especially between the Mets, the broadcast Mets. So it just really depends. And I'm like Joe, and to me, I kind of scratch my head sometimes.
There are markets legendary for this. There are a couple that
Yep.
John has had to deal with. And there are a couple.
I'm not going to say who. I'm not going to say who, but there's a bad hombre not far away.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Wow.
We need to be calling some names here. Come on.
That was kind of Dr. Seuss right there. Bad hombre, not far away. We need the rest of that book.
Wow.
I have a file that's bigger than an encyclopedia.
And for those who can't see our chat, which again we really should sell off because it's so fun. Rick has mentioned that he can't comment during a government shutdown. So just lest anyone
Wise man.
A
wise man. Yeah.
My microphone is not working for some
Yeah,
reason.
absolutely.
Hello. Hello.
But, for example, like here in Kansas City, the CBS station, Channel 5, Luke Doris, I think he was on WeatherBrains a while back. He came in about, I don't know, 2-ish years ago, a year and a half ago.
Yeah, right.
And, I'm emailing. We were actually looking at Luke a while back to do weekends for us, and he said no, and he had other things going on at the time in Miami. And so I was familiar with him, and then when he came aboard at Channel 5 here, like, hey, let's go out for lunch, and let's catch up, and if I could help you out in any which way with this person or that person or the weather service here and the weather service there, I'm an open book. And so we did it, and we had a great lunch. And again, the commonalities of, oh, well, you should have seen this at my station. Oh, you should have seen it here. And I think it's also at times therapeutic to hear from others in other places, so that you either put it into perspective of, oh, well, I guess maybe things aren't as bad as I think. But it's not hard to do. It really isn't. Just reach out. That would be the thing I would say.
Yeah. Brian, Joe, it's great to see you guys. Following on to that, I know that the Pleasant Hill office has been one of the offices I always kind of look up to as being progressive in their integrated warning team meetings and how much involvement there is with all the partners in the integrated warning team. You guys have been there a long time. Can you talk about the relationship with the Weather Service and how all that gels together there? Because I think, to me, it's always been a real shining example of how it should work.
Brian, you want to tackle that one?
Oh, yeah, sure. IWT, I don't know if we were one of the first that did it in the country to actually get emergency managers, weather service folks, media all together in the room together, because we all are, as we were talking about, serving the beast. And that's one thing that, just going back to consultants, that I never liked when they wanted me to say, here's your forecast. I said, no, it's not your forecast. In other words, correction, I'm sorry, let me back up. It's not my forecast, because they wanted me to take credit for doing it. I said, it's like being a chef. This is my recipe. Because of my college roommate, Mr. Laurie, I'll say, this is my recipe for lasagna. but it's fixed for you. And so I think that all of us are in a service industry, whether you're for the weather service, whether you're for emergency managers, or before whether you're in broadcasting. Now, our megaphone is bigger. Our audience, we can get to a lot of people quicker than the other two branches, but for us to be able to survive, it's like a stool. If you cut off one of the legs of the stool, it's going to collapse. So IWT is pretty important, and I don't know who came up with it, but I remember, well, it was not too long ago. I mean, I forget how many years we've been doing it, but it's just so, such an integral thing. And it just seemed like such a natural thing for us to do with the Weather Service. And just to be able to fit in their shoes for even if it's an hour to figure out, okay, so this is what you guys are going through. Oh, so this is what the emergency managers are going through. Oh, this is what you guys need from us as broadcasters. And it was an eye-opening experience just to share that and to exchange and also to think about policy. Like, why do you guys issue a watch 5 minutes before we have to go on the air? Or if you're going to stop a warning, why don't you let us know in the chat what your thinking is so that we can go on the air and tell the masses? And so it was just that sort of dialogue where they didn't think, oh, I had no idea that something like that would mean so much to you or make your job easier. So it's I'm glad that somebody from the outside looking in looks at Pleasant Hill and looks at our DMA and say, okay, this is how they've figured it out. Now we still have some kinks here and there. There's still a couple of times that you're just kind of walking around and making sure that everybody's talking from the same hymnal. That's another thing. We're not a market where one station will issue their own warnings. We don't do that. Or if the warning's not coming out quite yet, and I think Joe does this as well, if the storm looks like it's not going to die down and it's moving from one county to the next, the way I'll phrase it is, although there's no official warning out for Lafayette County, this thing's right on county line. It shows no signs of weakening. I think you guys should be in your safe area too. That way we're not stepping on the toes. We're not throwing them under the bus. And sure enough, 5 seconds after I say that on the air, there's that new warning. So I'm glad to hear that other people have noticed what the weather service in Pleasant Hill has been able to accomplish. Am I forgetting anything, Joe?
No, I mean, we're kind of in a weird spot because we've got, to some extent, Springfield to our south, Topeka to our west. They all have one or two counties in our DMA, if you will. Pleasant Hill takes up a bunch. And there will be times that I will, either text or call Pleasant Hill and saying, hey, this is what I'm seeing. I just want to run this by you. And there was a case last winter where, I was seeing, back to snow, that we were going to have a problem in the morning. And this was around 9 or 10 o'clock the night before. I was like, hey, I see this. What do you think? And I think y'all should probably think about a winter weather advisory because nobody's going to be ready for this in the morning. It wasn't going to be much snow. We know what happens when you get an inch of snow. It just could be a mess at rush hour. And they kind of hemmed and hawed a little bit, more than I liked. And I'll talk to them about it after the fact. And, I'll text some of my friends down there and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Where's your headspace at? So we've got a really good two-way thing. We've got an IWT coming up here in about 2 weeks, as a matter of fact, depending on the shutdown, I guess. And my bone to pick right now is the heat advisory or the extreme heat warnings. I've got a bone to pick about that. So, and they know I'll talk. I will give out my grievances, but it's done with respect. And that's the whole thing. It has to be done with respect.
Yes, professional colleagues,
Yes.
respect, and I love to hear that. Having that open line
It's
of
not the
communication.
EF5 ripping and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
It's got to be done with respect. It's not that hard to do.
And we love to hear that honest feedback and collaboration, discussing things like, coworkers, colleagues. A lot of times we can't get the honest feedback. So I think what you just talked about, Joe, is amazing. I think that's critical. Whether you're getting information you don't agree with or that you do agree with, that does nothing but help the whole team, the whole process.
I mean, personally, I'd rather it be done over a beer or two or three. But here we are trying to figure it out while I'm on the air and they're working through a night shift.
Are you drinking beers while you're on the air? Really, Joe?
No, well, sometimes.
Well, talking about this is probably not going to be an issue anymore. But one of the things that got in my craw, just because people didn't understand it, is aerial flood. In that when they see it on the screen, it looks like a real flood as opposed to a fake flood.
Yeah.
And I said, just drop the L, make it an area flood advisory or area flood warning. And obviously that's going to go by the wayside because they are trying to streamline on the number of bulletins that come out. But one of the things that Joe and I tried to do, and I still think that, as you mentioned, Luke over at CBS is interested in going back on that, is trying to get consistent colors on tornado watch and warning, severe thunderstorm watch and warning, and flash flood watch and warning. So that no matter what station you're watching, no matter when you move into Kansas City, love to do it across the country. Probably that's not going to happen. But at least here, if it expands here, that maybe just maybe, instead of having different colors for tornado warning from this market and that market, or from this station and this other station, maybe some continuity. Because the last time I checked, when you look at a traffic light, red does mean stop. It's not purple. It's not orange. It's not another color. It's pretty standardized. And why don't we do the same thing?
And that's one of those things where, if there's a Met in some other market right now watching, and maybe they're thinking to themselves, hey, it's not a bad idea. So just send an email to your colleagues at the other station and say, hey, would you guys ever consider that? And maybe it doesn't work at all. Or maybe somebody will say, yeah, it's not a bad idea. And maybe a little idea could be born from that.
Yeah.
Hey, this is John. It's great to have you guys on. Really appreciate it. I have two-parter for you. So you're a college student listening to WeatherBrains right now who wants to be a TV Met. What advice do you have for them? And second, what is the strangest thing that happened to you as a TV broadcaster ever?
Whoop.
Wow. If there is a young person who is thinking about broadcast meteorology, tell them that there could be opportunity, but it's not in the same way that they're probably accustomed to thinking it's going to be presented. Mainly because of what we discussed earlier, and that we now have so many different avenues for social media, so many different ways, and that traditional broadcasting is not going to be the only way to do this. As a matter of fact, I mean, look at the ringleader of WeatherBrains, Mr. Span, who I've admired for a long, long time. And whether he knows it or not, when I see him do wall-to-wall coverage, I'm watching him with my laptop and taking notes. And I remember when I was on your committee to get your AMS seal, and I looked at it and I said, this man is flawless. You are just one of those guys who is very natural at this, and hats off to you. But because you're doing what you're doing, and one of my proteges by the name of Matt Laubbaum is doing it in neighboring Mississippi, and you're seeing other people who are younger than me and younger than Joe, who are thinking that maybe social media may be something that should not be ignored. And so I would tell anybody who is thinking about this, be good communicators, be able to take something as bizarre as a mesoscale convective complex and break it down into a thunderstorm factory so that people who did not go through dynamic and did not go through synoptic and did not go through all the stuff we did, they can still understand it, because you got to be relatable. but also take as much as you can with regard to um, programming and being able to do social media, because it's not going away. If anything, it's going to expand. That would be the first question. I'll let Joe jump in to answer that question first before we go to the next one. Go for it.
So to me, for kids who are coming out soon, be careful with where your vision is for where the industry is going to be in 10 to 20 years.
Mm.
When, Brian got into this, when I got into this, I don't think anybody ever thought the TV news would be sort of where we are now, and then where it may be going here in the next 10, 20 years. Maybe you don't have all these stations doing newscasts, which would reduce the potential openings down the road. I think the government is going to be okay down the road. It's a little quirky now. We'll see. But I worry about where we're going to be in about 10, 20 years from now. And somebody who's coming out, if you're like, well, I'll do this for 40 years. I don't know. And then from a social media standpoint, as far as another avenue goes, I would probably say have multiple streams of income coming in, whether it's social and television. The only thing I worry about social is you're an algorithm change away from watching your income tank. And that also worries me from a streamer standpoint. If Facebook or if YouTube changes their algorithm, we saw it happen to our news department whenever Facebook changed their algorithm 5 years ago and de-emphasized news, we took a hit from pushes to our website. So that part of it does kind of worry me as far as streaming goes.
What does everybody?
Sorry, I'm going to jump in and ask a quick YouTube question that came in. What are your thoughts? And Bill, you've got a question right after me. What are your two thoughts about how AI is going to change? That's from a YouTube commenter.
Brian, it's all yours.
Thanks, buddy. I mean, AI is something that's not going to go away either. It is a tool, just like anything else, that if properly used, will be very beneficial. The thing is, and I've done enough speeches for AMS and NWA conferences, and I call those who are weather enthusiasts, who are not necessarily trained in this science, not meteorologists, but mediaologists, like social mediaologists, where they're doing it for clicks, and they're doing it for likes, and they're doing it for shares. And they'll go out and say, 27 days from now, we're going to see a major tornado outbreak. That's not doing anybody any good. And that, combined with AI, is a pretty dangerous thing. One of the things I was just going to talk about, and Joe mentioned this, is that maybe research, hopefully, it'd be kind of nice if research would go on, because this is the only planet we got. And, one of the analogies I remember as a child was if Earth were the size of an apple, by scale, its atmosphere would only be as thick as its skin. And when you put it in that perspective, although it looks like it goes for hundreds of miles in the heavens, it's really not that much that's protecting us. It's kind of fragile. So I would hope that research would be up there, and maybe that's something that's, talking about other disciplines, people are saying that AI will help us get closer to a cure for cancer. And maybe it will, because maybe humans along with AI will be a good blend. But it has to be a blend where AI cannot be left unattended, just like we cannot be totally arrogant to say that we can't benefit something from that. So I think it's going to be a combination of both. And I'm not really sure exactly how to manage it, because the genie's already out of the bottle, and we just have to figure out how to live with it.
scares me the most about AI is AI really wasn't a thing, if you will, 2-ish years ago, 3 years ago, I guess, from a video standpoint and from a social standpoint. And look at how far it's come in the last year or two. It's come this far in a year or two. Where are we going to be here in about 3 years? As what Brian and I tell each other all the time. I'm glad, I've got 3 to 5 years left in me. And then, I'll let the kids fuss around with this stuff. Because oof, I'm not sure about that stuff.
Hey, you all both have definitely avoided John Gordon's second part of his question.
Oh,
I want to know the
sorry, Bill,
strangest thing
the
that
weirdest
happened.
thing.
The weirdest, strangest. I'm sorry. What was the verb or the adjective rather?
What is the strangest thing that happened to you in your whole career as a TV Met?
Besides WeatherBrains.
That's right.
You want to go first, Joe?
You
You made me
the
go
only-
first on the AI, so you go
Okay.
first.
So the only thing that so many people are just so kind when you visit with them in public, or for the most part, I don't get the nastiness of emails and Facebook posts. I'm very good about muting and blocking, and because I don't care. I really don't care at this point. Mute and block and see you next time. Yeah, well, it was back in Midland, Texas when I used to work there. I had this one lady, I was just eating a McDonald's cheeseburger, and she was all excited to see me. And she had come up to me, and first thing she said and first thing she did was she slapped me, like slapped my hand. And you're Joe Lorian, sweetest darn thing. But I had this big old cheeseburger in my hand when she slapped it. And that thing goes all over me with the ketchup flying and stuff like that. And she did not have a clue. She totally did not have a clue. She was just talking up a storm because she was so excited to see me. And I was like, okay, then that's a little different. Don't often get one of those come stumbling through. So, but I'm just so darn laid back that nothing really phases me too much.
Mm. Weirdest. Well, one that everybody can go to if they do a YouTube search is Busby Groundhog Day.
Oh yeah.
That was the weirdest thing that ever happened to me, in that you guys are laughing already because some of you have seen it. Back in
Yeah.
1995, my news director at the time, who promoted me to chief, would try to make me just do something crazy on Groundhog Day. So he would have a chroma keyed groundhog next to me during the weather, blah, blah, blah. So every year it just, the ante got, he would up the ante. So this was on set where I'm at the green screen, and the way they built the green screen, it was like a weather alley, so that the wall of the weather center was one, and then the back of another reporter's area where they could do debriefing was the other. So it's like this alley, and there were these huge scoops there. And I know it's Groundhog Day, so I'm already paranoid. And I remember seeing on Fox 4 something of a circus bear in Russia with a muzzle on its snout who just attacks this interviewer. And that's in the back of my head. And the Ringling Brothers Circus was in town. And so I'm already on edge, and I see this fuzzy thing about 5'6" heading right toward me with no escape. And so I let out a scream, a Vienna choir boy soprano scream, which is probably one of the most embarrassing things you would ever see, but it's on YouTube. So that'd probably be the weirdest thing. But weird in another way. And I tell this story, and it usually makes me well up. is that I was speaking at a nursing home, and there was just one lady who was just like Joe was talking about, enamored, and she wanted to meet me, and I was talking to the group, and they brought her in. But by the time I worked my way to her side of the room, they took her back to her room. So I said, I know it's not proper to give out private information, but can you take me to her room so I can engage like you wanted me to? And so we did. And so she's sitting there, and it's a well-appointed room. You could see the sepia tone photograph of her husband, World War II, and kids pictures, and then the kids having kids pictures, and so on. And she's just going on and on and on. She fixed this tea, and she's talking about how she's outlived her son or her husband, and the kids all moved away, so I don't see the grands that often. And so she's taken finally a sip of tea, and I could get a word in edgewise, because everybody moved away. I said, it must be kind of lonely. She said, no, no, I have friends who visit me every day. She grabbed my hand and said, you're one of them.
Mm.
And I know she's long gone, but I tell that story and it gets a lump in my throat that we are not only communicators and we're not only people who are trying to make life a little easier for people. We could be like their only conduit, but an important conduit to make the right decisions when it comes to severe weather or something like that. But that just it's a weird thing because you just don't know who's on the other side of that glass when you're talking. You just have no idea. And so I'll use the word weird, which was your adjective to the question. But it was a weird, no, a pleasant kind of way. How about those Chiefs? All right.
You know, guys, something that we've been talking about in our chat is just how delightful it is to have you both. This has been so lovely, in part because you're both so lovely, but also because you're in the same place and your recollections of events and you can just bring us through so much because you're in the same, market. And I was curious, we covered a little bit of the negative framing question. Are there places where there's competition? And there was a little bit of hinting around. Well, we know some of those places exist, but it's tough to talk about naming names in that, and I totally understand. But you guys are deep in broadcast, like you know folks all across the country, and I'm curious from your perspective, are you aware of other friend pairs like what the dynamic you guys share in Kansas City? Are there other places where you know of you know, markets where there's people working at different stations and they're friends and genuinely work together, have that camaraderie? Is there anything you think would be worth highlighting? Whether it's within a market or neighboring markets, just something that you think could be a similar dynamic to yours.
Brian, I'll let you take that because I think you have a better set of connections
I
outside of
do.
Kansas City.
I do, and I'm just trying to think of competition in markets where I know more than one chief or more than. See, sometimes I know the morning guy at one station who's not necessarily friends with the chief at another station. So yeah, I've got a lot of contacts for sure. I just don't know if I have apples to apples like you and I who do the same shift. So that's a tough one to say. I think what it has to do with more than anything is if you feel good about what you do and you think you've done your best, that's all you can ask for. And when Kansas City is tired of me or tired of Joe or tired of anybody else, they'll let us know because obviously, they're the ones who vote every night as to what they watch. And what's funny is it's not like a Venn diagram where these are Joe's folks and these are Brian's folks and there's nothing in between. There are folks who say, I'll watch a Joe on the earlies and I'll watch Brian before I go to bed, that sort of thing. I can't think of any specifics again because people are in different parts of their career where they're in different job descriptions. So that's a tough one, but I'm sure they're out there. I know they're out there because we see it in the breaks. Maybe when we're at an NWA or an AMS, you kind of see the guys who are talking over a coffee break in between the sessions. And the names right now. All right, I would say that most of the guys in Charlotte, John Aarons, Brad Panovich, competitors, but I still think they know each other and respect each other. That's just two that come to mind right off the top of my head. And before my mentor died in Cleveland, Dick Goddard and Betsy across the street at the NBC station had a mutual respect. And that goes back to the word we had before, respect. If you respect the other person, and there should be no division because we're all in this together. And a lot of folks have a tough time understanding what really goes into it. I think a lot of people are really surprised by how much work goes into those 2.5 minutes that we put on the air. And they don't realize that we're not just pulling rabbits out of the hat and saying, okay, this is the forecast. It's a lot more intensive. And so for those of us who are in the circle, it would be kind of nice to support each other.
And I don't think we have to look any further than Birmingham because of our own James Spann. He works very hard to make sure that everybody works together. He and Wes Wyatt, the wonderful chief over at Fox 6, they've even done a book tour together. Which you just don't even think about seeing that, but I think, he gets all the chiefs on the phone together when they're big events, just fosters a good relationship, and that's really critical. Somebody's got to reach out and make that happen, and
Yeah.
he's the catalyst in our market. It's like the four godfathers. Only they get together and talk. The kids are not even allowed at the table in those conversations. They get together and make those things happen. But I was thrilled to see that James and Wes were out at a book signing together. Wes stopped me while I was running one day. Like, hey, blah 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 blah. I was talking to Span and this and that, and I'm like, that's just super. So I don't think
Well,
we have to look
as a full
any
disclaimer,
further.
though, these are like my kids. Okay, so they're former interns.
Yeah.
They grew up with me, so
True.
it's like
True.
we've been family for a long time,
Yeah, they've
which
either
is
been
kind of
on
cool.
WeatherBrains with us, or they worked with you, or they were interned, or something. You have left a legacy, and that leads me to my next question, because you've mentored a lot of people, James Spann, and Brian, you've mentored. I'm sure you have too, Joe, but Brian, you've mentored a lot of folks, and talk about what that's meant to you personally. I know that's probably brought a lot of joy and sometimes some heartbreak too.
It does. And James hit it on the head in that uh, you're with people 8 hours of a day with them wide awake and attentive, hopefully. And so you do galvanize some decent relationships with these folks. And so you celebrate their first um, contract that they sign. You are there first time they're not renewed. You're there when they announce that they're getting married. You're there when they get divorced. You're there through all those different chapters in their life, and you get to see them grow and develop. There was one intern of mine who I think didn't want to tell me that he got a job in a bigger market than me because he thought I'd be jealous or upset with him to get in Tampa, St. Pete, and Kansas City's smaller than that. And so he hemmed and hawed and said, what? Well, I'm taking a job on Tampa. I'm like, well, good for you. And I thought you'd be upset. No. So it's kind of good to see them all growing. Like I mentioned, Lawbaum down in Tupelo, Mississippi. For him to take that upon himself, and from what I understand, doing gangbusters so far, and to see them develop. And I tell people when you're first starting out, you're going to imitate me, but don't stick with that. If there are things that I do that you think you can incorporate, do it. But it's like wearing a suit that's tailored to my body. You're going to be uncomfortable trying to maneuver in it and look natural. And I don't have all the answers either. This is just one man's opinion on how to do weather, and take what you can from me. So to see them become their own self is kind of like being a father figure, and like, yeah, go out, have fun, and do well. And if you are in a bigger market than me, so be it. But are you happy? That's the key.
Well, you've got to be so proud. And Joe, I'll ask you first, and let Brian chime in. But it has to be heartbreaking to hear that SLU is dropping its
Oh,
meteorology program.
oh boy. So you just kind of scraped open a scab.
Sorry about that.
Yeah,
We were with Chuck Graves a few weeks ago and
yeah.
up in Huntsville, and just could not believe the news.
I don't know why that news affected me when I saw it on
Hmm.
Twitter. I think I got a DM from one of my colleagues up at the Aviation Weather Service about it because I didn't know it was coming. And it just felt like a part of me died. I mean, it's I loved my time at SLU. I love the friendships that go on to this day. This weekend, we're heading down to Mexico with two other SLU couples. Um, and when I found out through that, I copied it, sent it off to Brian. But it truly felt like part of me died. And
Hmm.
to this day, I mean, I don't know why, but it just was a core of me um, that just got trampled on. And I
Yeah.
sort of understand it, but I don't understand it. I'm hearing rumblings about another school here in the Midwest that may be losing their meteorology department as well. And it's just sad. That's what it is. It's sad. And whether it's budget reasons or whatever, I just find it very sad. I mean, honest to God, I was thinking whenever I leave this earth, I was going to bequest some money to my SLU meteorology department, so that they could take the kids to conferences or buy some new equipment
Hmm.
or something. And yeah, maybe not so much anymore.
I'm so sorry about that too, because we were heartbroken just getting to know uh, Chuck Graves
Yeah.
on NWA Council, and Sarah and different people that were associated with the program, and knowing you guys are from there. Brian, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, in that it took a while to get the meteorology degree just because I was working at the TV station from freshman year on. So it took me longer than the 4 years, so I spent a lot more time there. Uh, it is part of me that is, like Joe said, that unfortunate but true. There aren't that many meteorology schools across the country. But SLU has a special part of my heart. Uh, I'm hoping that people will realize possibly that that was a mistake. It took, things to be reinstated. Maybe this is not
Hmm.
final. I know Dr. Market over at Mizzou is upset about it. And maybe the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I do plan on writing and getting other SLU alums to at least pitch an effort talking about what we are talking about, that research seems to be the way to go, and that we need to learn more about this planet. We need to learn more and send some cash there and get this future generation. I mean, even in elementary school and high school, we have STEM and STEAM. For what reason? Well, I tend to think that earth science will be part of that. So maybe it's not totally closed off. And I'm hoping that if enough of us maybe make a bit of a stink, for lack of a better word, then maybe they'll reconsider it.
I hope so too. That would be wonderful. And give us the latest on Georgie Global, Brian.
Well, Georgie's going to come back to life. Georgie was a cartoon character I came up with back in the early 90s to teach kids how to read a map and weather, per se. And so it's integrated learning. And the thing about Georgie, and he was in about, what, 7 TV markets and about 14 newspapers in his heyday. But back then it was very difficult to animate. But now with AI and other things, it's much easier to animate. And with TikTok and attention spans being 30 seconds, maybe Georgia can come out there, live on that place like TikTok, and teach kids about that is actually nitrogen and not oxygen is the number one gas in the atmosphere, and all these other things that we take for granted. But maybe, just maybe, a third grader looking at TikTok, or maybe not that young, but some elementary school teacher may say, okay, let me show these to my classrooms. So yeah, Georgie's going to come back one way, shape, or form, probably within the next year.
That's exciting.
All right, so we got to take a break. Before we do that, I think we might.
We interrupt this program for a CBS Radio Net Alert Bulletin.
Kim?
All right. Well, word on the street is that Neil Jacobs he went through the whole confirmation process. Senate did vote to confirm that last week. Rumor has it that he may be starting in the job tomorrow. So just stay tuned for more, but we may actually have an administrator for NOAA. And what a fun time to start during a shutdown.
Yeah.
So great. Love that. Love that for him.
So is he furloughed too?
He can cover a shift in Goodland on Friday.
So this is a rumor based on reliable sources. It is a rumor based on very reliable sources that we might have a NOAA administrator on the job tomorrow that we all know and love. But that's just a rumor. We're just reporting on good, reliable sources here. So we wanted to pass that on. So having said that, and listen, I'm hoping that Joe and Brian can stay. Can you guys stay for a few more minutes?
Yep, I can.
Okay, good. So I want you guys to be involved in Picks of the Week, where we go around and share something cool related to weather. But we have to take a very quick break, and we're going to hear from Tony Rice and his astronomy report. We'll hear from Jen. And this week in tornado history, we'll come back with a little email, Picks of the Week, and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
Researchers at the University of Bern, Switzerland recently published a paper sharing their findings after analyzing years of imaging data from the European Space Agency's Mars Express and Mars Trace Gas Orbiter missions. And the results, they could change the way we look at Mars' atmosphere. We've known for decades that Mars' climate is very dynamic. It's driven by the seasons. It has an axial tilt like Earth, after all. We've also observed a periodicity to the most intense of those dust storms, the ones that encircle the planet. One of those took out the Opportunity rover in 2018, when dust was so thick in the atmosphere that no light whatsoever could make it to the surface. And that starved the solar-powered golf cart-sized rover of the energy that needed to even run its heaters. The rover basically froze to death. The small car-sized Curiosity, also near the same latitude, had its science efforts hampered because of that loss of visibility, but the mission continued because it's powered by decaying plutonium-238, not solar cells. And it's that dust in the atmosphere that these researchers used to gain a better understanding of Mars's dynamic atmosphere. While observing dust devils is nothing new, we've been doing it from above with orbiters and from the surface with rovers and landers for several decades. These researchers observed more than 1,000 of them. One of the most surprising findings was that the speeds previously measured on the ground by missions like NASA's InSight lander were nearly quadrupled at the tops of these tornado-like whirlwinds, reaching speeds approaching 100 miles an hour. Now, it's important to note that a 100-mile-an-hour wind on Mars is nothing like one on Earth because of the atmospheric density. It's much, much lower, about 100th that of Earth. So don't think EF1, think a gentle breeze. The study titled Dust Devil Migration Patterns Reveals Strong Near-Surface Winds Across Mars is available in the October 8th issue of Science Advances. And it's hoped to have far-reaching impact, particularly on planning landing sites for future missions, both robotic and one-day crewed, especially those that will rely on solar power. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
This week in tornado history, October 18th, 1990. 16 tornadoes were confirmed across parts of the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast on this day. One of the strongest was an F3 that quickly hit in Somerset County, New Jersey, in Montgomery Township. For the storm data entry, the tornado developed along a squall line, and the path was estimated at only a half mile. 3 homes were flattened on DeHart Drive.
All right. Now can you hear me? It was a little minor hiccup in the audio hijack, and we'll fix that in the post here. So what we're going to do, JP, we are going to roll the email intro right now. All right, time now to check the email inbox to see what's in there this week.
I think my earpiece died.
All right. So email wise this week, most of the stuff that
You
we
can come
got
on in.
were some really good show suggestions, which has been great. So I forwarded all those to Bill. We have a suggestion for Kevin Robinson, Chief Met for WLWT in Cincinnati. We also had a suggestion come in for Evan Andrews out of Fox 4 in Dallas. And then we also got an email from Greg, who has made a couple of trips to the UK to visit his daughter, and did a really great email to us about some of the UK Met stuff over there and some wonderful things that they're doing. He gave a suggestion as well. So we love it. Keep them coming. Keep all those suggestions in. Make sure you get those international emails into for John Gordon, because he wants to be able to look at those and answer those questions. And we love getting your stuff. Thank you, everybody, for listening to us. Email at weatherbrains.com.
All right, indeed. So we're going to do picks of the week. We're going to go right into it here. This is where everybody on the show will be sharing something that is cool and weather related. This can be a data source, website, app, anything remotely related to weather. So let's begin. Let's begin with Dr. James Adelot in Tulsa Town and get him done here, because he's got to do the 9 o'clock news shortly. So James, what's on your mind? Go.
Yeah, mine is a Facebook post I made earlier today. I was fooling around with the Weatherfront app and realized thunderstorms were erupting on the dry line. But the dry line was in Arizona, not Oklahoma or Kansas.
And along those lines, my pick involves some of the damage that occurred in Arizona today. It's been a very interesting weather day for our friends in Arizona. So that'll be my pick of the week as well. All right, Rick, let's get a pick of the week from you, sir.
Well, my pick of the week has to do, it's related to Kim's breaking news, and the article I chose was written before that final piece of the puzzle is hopefully falling into place, but it's about Neil's confirmation. And I chose the specific article I did because it was the only one I could find that didn't have the stupid word Sharpie Gate in the title. So that's my pick of the week.
All right. And again, all of these picks will be up on the website, weatherbrains.com. Okay, Kim, you're up. What's your pick?
Yeah, my pick relates to what Rick just picked. So while every media outlet that covers Neil for weather purposes is screaming about Sharpiegate, I think it's because it's all that they know. Like, you Google his name and that's what comes up. And, journalism these days is what it is. There are other interests and associations that are actually really excited about Neil coming in. So there's one sport fishing association that tweeted out, "We're so excited to have this guy and work on conservation and sport fishing." And when he was the administrator last time, he did a whole lot for replenishing different kinds of endangered fish stocks. And, there's a whole marine side to NOAA, the wet side, so-called wet side of NOAA. And because Neil is an avid fisherman and he's a surfer, there's like a surfers association that's really excited about him being the administrator too. You should Google for some of this other stuff. It's we've always known he's an interesting character, and it's coming up in some of the different ways he's being covered as he's coming back into the office.
Awesome. Great. And again, these are picks will be up on weatherbrains.com. Troy Kimmel, what's your pick of the week?
I am going to give a quick plug to our friends that have been here before, and I haven't found the link I want to use yet, so I'll get that to you. But we all know Brandon and Landon out at Guam, out at WFO Guam. Once again, they did their build at a local shopping center. They do so much for public awareness out in the Marianas and areas like this, and they did their big build with the Lincoln Logs, like they always do, with it all going toward charity. And it's just so good to see the work they do out there, not only at the WFO at Guam, having been out there quite a few times to visit with them before, but also to see them giving back to the community. And I'm going to find a good link either to the Pacific Daily News or one of the newspapers. They just finished that project within the last few weeks. So congratulations to them.
Excellent. All right, John Gordon, you, sir, are up. What's your pick of the week?
Okay, I want to congratulate SPC for putting in a day 6. Let's start with that. It's so nice to see courage, like courage from the lion, from the Wizard of Oz. Keep those long range forecasts going. My pick of the week comes from China. I've been all over Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, Prince Edward Island looking for tidal bores. Love tidal bores. Love them. But one in China I just saw, I never knew about. Watch this video. That'll be linked on WeatherBrains. It is the best one I've ever seen on this river in China. It'll blow you away.
Wow. All right. That's a good tease right there. Okay, Joe, we have stalled long enough. You, sir, are up, so give us a good pick of the week.
I've got 3: Alaska, Sierras, or Phoenix. I'm going to go with the Sierras. California, getting 2 to 4 feet of snow perhaps over the next few days. Highly unusual, upper level low off the coast of California, triggering off maybe that severe weather. I'll tie it into John as we head towards maybe Friday afternoon, Friday night, or Saturday morning.
Awesome. Okay, Brian, you, sir, are up. What you got?
Joe Loria's more rain in Arizona. No.
What your weather app can't tell you, buddy.
Exactly. The nemesis. No, honestly and truly, it appears that we may be in for some rocking and rolling, at least part of our DMA on heading into the weekend. We'll see what happens there. But that seems to be my pick. And yeah, for SBC to go that far out, to already at least put an area in, not bad at all.
All right, Jen, what you got?
So I don't have a lot of positive things to say about my Penn State Nittany Lion football team, but I do always have positive things to say about our weather department. And so my pick of the week is the eWall, the electronic map wall from the Department of Meteorology. Just great stuff on there. I really use it a lot for some of the past data. And so it's been really cool. So get on there and explore. There's a lot to look at.
That's been around for a long time. That's a great resource. If you need to bookmark that one, that is great. So Joe, Brian, any social media accounts we need to plug? Anything we need to plug at all? This is your chance to plug away. So go.
I'm a Twitter fiend, Fox4WX on Twitter. That's my OCD, or X, whatever you want to call it. That's my OCD. Meteorologist Joe Laurie on Facebook.
Awesome. Brian, what do we need to promote here?
The Brian Busby on Facebook, but look out for Georgie Global, who does have his own Facebook page to be launched, and also will eventually be on, say, TikTok as well. Probably even on Instagram too. So there you go.
Wow. Okay. Well, it's been refreshing having you two guys on the show. This is just great. It's been a great show. You guys are total legends, and it's an honor that we've had you on the show. And for those of you that are listening or watching that are new here, we typically do the show on Monday nights at 8 o'clock Central. I'm sorry, 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern on the WeatherBrains YouTube channel. You can watch the video version live. YouTube.com/WeatherBrains. But most of you listen to the produced audio podcast. Whether you watch, listen, we thank you. And if you want to get in touch with us, anything we've talked about, have questions or comments, the email address, it is email@weatherbrains.com. So on behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew, I'm James Spann. Thanks for listening. Have a great week and God bless. Good show.
Wow.
Great
Thank
show.
you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Great.
Brian, Joe,
really good. Thank you all.
Joe and Brian,
folks.
thank you guys for your time. I know you guys are busy.